We're live. We're live,
Awesome.
Moritz. Thank you for making the time. And I'm excited to talk a lot about FluidKey. We've been trying to get this on the books for a while now, so I'm glad we finally made it work. Um, maybe start things off with an introduction. Tell us about yourself and what you're building.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm Moritz. I co-founded FluidKey a little over a year ago. So we launched FluidKey last year. The main problem we've been trying to solve is really giving crypto power users and people that want to directly access opportunities on chain a better way to do that without having to manually manage a stack of different wallets, different addresses, and so on and so forth. Once you start having a lot of money on chain, I think privacy also becomes a big concern. And so with FluidKey, you basically get a very simple format where you have an ENS. So you could have like jeff.fkey.eth. Every time somebody sends you money, it goes to a new hex address that isn't linked to your public profile, isn't linked to any of your other activity. And so you basically get this self-addressed privacy out of the box in a format that is very simple to use. That was kind of the base idea. And since then, I think we've also been working a lot on just covering all of the flows of crypto power users end to end. So you can on and off ramp money very easily from FluidKey and do a lot of other things that we can get into. But that's the very short, I guess, intro. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And just to get right into it, there's things that I think you're offering that are really exciting. For me personally, I think privacy, I'm a nerd and probably a loser for saying this because I don't think it's such a hot topic, but like privacy is kind of like the ethos of blockchain, in my opinion. That's what attracted me to it. That's what made me interested. And the sovereignty aspect, not having to rely on custodians to manage your assets. There's a plethora of things that I think FluidKey speaks to, and you're doing it in a very seamless way. One of the particular things that I think you're offering, and we can get into it, here, is the fact that when you are holding your assets with FluidKey, immediately you're generating yield. There's no, and we could talk about the intricacies of that, but I think it's really interesting that you're immediately, it's not even at the forefront of like what you're marketing per se. But I mean, it's something that you offer that is just kind of ingrained in the end user's, flow of or
Yeah.
user experience, right? So
No,
can let you
yeah.
expand on that.
Yeah, happy to talk more about that. We launched this, I think, 2 months ago now in partnership with Morpho. And the way it works basically is that you can give us authorization if you want to basically move funds into a yield vault, a yield-bearing vault from Morpho as soon as you receive funds. And so the experience is really seamless because to the end user, you just have your FluidKey wallet, you receive funds, and as soon as you receive those funds, they start earning yield for you. And the cool thing as well is that the moment you want to send money out, you want to send USDC to someone else, you just send the money out and automatically that money is getting moved out of the vault as well and basically being sent to the person. And you don't have to worry about the like technical, steps happening in between. It's all basically just, smart accounts and transaction batching and so on and so forth. But to the end user, it just feels like, a seamless experience where they don't have to click any buttons from through the whole flow.
Right. No, it's really exciting because I think while there are vaults and different sorts of ways of staking, there's a lot of clicks that have to get there. And for an end user, and I still consider myself new. Like I've been in the space probably at least interested and engaged in it probably since 2016. But as like a physical user of the different protocols, the different apps that are out there that are Web3 centered, I've probably been doing it for like 2 years, 3 years, transparently. And I think one of the things that you recognize is more clicks, more issues, less end user retention, right?
100%.
And so for me, I'm looking at just the user interface, the entire like offering that FluidKey's putting out there, and it's seamless, right? And you don't see that a lot. So just I guess what has gotten you to this point? This is where I'd like to go back and like learn about the founder, where you came from, what you've been building prior to that led you to FluidKey.
Yeah. So I've been a crypto user for a while now, but FluidKey is actually the first startup I founded in the space. So prior to working on FluidKey, I was the CEO of a digital media and marketing company based in Africa. It was actually a pretty large company. So we had like 300 employees at the moment I left, and I was based in Kenya and Nigeria and Ghana over the 8 years I worked there. And I think spending time in those countries made me realize how seamless and important as well crypto is, just to move money between countries, keep your funds also in a currency that doesn't depreciate and basically is worth nothing after a year. And so it solves a lot of problems when you look at it from that perspective. And that's what really got me excited about using crypto first personally as an end user. And as I started using crypto more and more, I think I also started seeing these problems that we're now solving with FluidKey, right? So one of the problems that I was facing initially was, okay, I don't want to have like my whole account history connected to one address that anybody can look up with, just like Googling my ENS pretty much. And I think many people that are in crypto feel the same way. And so what you end up doing is just, generating maybe a new address in your MetaMask account, and then another one and another one. And then it becomes like this very difficult to manage setup. And so with FluidKey, you basically get the best of both worlds. You have just one ENS, but you don't have to worry about, managing these addresses manually. You get a new address on every transaction. And yeah, so that was kind of the starting point for me. But happy to go in more into detail if you have any questions.
We got the time. I've got nothing but time for you, Moritz. But I think one of the things that's interesting is your experience in Africa, working there, seeing the real use cases. I think, and that's something that I didn't think was going to be an attractive or motivating thing to be a part of the space, but recognizing how important it is to non-Westerners. So being from the United States, crypto is a speculative market where people are spraying and praying into meme coins or derivatives of a native token and hoping that the thing 500x's, right? And that's really been the use case here. But then for you to be able to experience, first off, like living in some of these non-Western places like Kenya, like Nigeria, you're seeing how important it is for the people that are using crypto, not just to speculate on meme coins, but actually have an opportunity to earn and yield, and seeing the power of like what 8% APR would be to them, compared to like it's not a differentiator for someone in the United States, but seeing the power of that, I think is that probably what kind of got you going with FluidKey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I lived in Nigeria, I think the currency kind of halved in value against the dollar over a year, over the first year I was there, right? And so, I mean, that's a very real problem, right? If you earn in that currency, you can basically buy half of the stuff you could buy the year prior. And if you now get access to stable coins, even without yield, right? Like, I think just the fact that you can, save in dollars and or save in another currency, whether it's Bitcoin or ETH, I think is just a huge unlock. And yeah, definitely noticed that. And this is what got me excited about crypto. I do think though, like many people in these countries are still like, it's not that easy to get access to these things, right? Like, it's not like, everything is solved. I'm often like also seeing on social media and so on, people talking about, I don't know, stablecoin penetration in some of these markets and so on. I think a lot of these numbers are like highly overestimated. And, it's easier to say that when you're like, it's like far away, you don't really know, and so on. And like people tend to believe it maybe more easily. But I think like there's still a large fraction of the population that doesn't have access to stable coins and to crypto as well in those markets. And I think that's also the work, we're trying to do, and many others are trying to do, just around UX and like accessibility that will enable more and more people to also onboard and just have access to self-custodial money.
Right. No, and it's really fascinating. Like, you see people on Farcaster, you see these people that are just grinding, right? Um, and I don't know how frequent you're on there, but one thing that is pretty telling is the people that stay on there are actually finding not only an audience, but they're actually earning. And it's not it's not something that like the Western mind is used to. You know, they think, oh, I'm on X. I'm here to just shit post like just put random content out there, see what sticks, or just scroll. But I think what we're starting to recognize is one, the economy's shifting, right? There's more. It's going to be more difficult to earn, um, and ultimately, we're going to need platforms like FluidKey to make passive income. I think and this is maybe like a little bit more of a heady conversation, but at least from where I'm looking, I think what we're seeing in the global economy right now is this trend towards almost like not just like how has this like singularity thing, but I think we're all trending towards this like global economy that everyone's going to be earning the same. Jobs are kind of look at the amount of remote work, offshoring that's going on. I think Pandora's box was open on that. And what we're going to see is people having this like almost universal base income. And we're going to need to find ways to generate income from using tools like FluidKey, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, many of our users today as well are kind of, fall into this category of users who, don't have all of their like economic activity just in one country necessarily. They might be based somewhere, getting, paid somewhere else, being from another country as well, and so on and so forth. And I think that's where crypto just is, already so much better than the traditional system today. I think I moved like I've lived in 5 different countries over the past 10 years or so. And every time you want to open a bank account, every time you want to do, anything, even if you have all the papers and so on and so forth, it takes time. It takes a huge amount of like also just, admin stuff and so on to do this. And I think crypto and generally just, what we're building here is just, so much smoother to use. You don't have to, you basically can just, port your bank account wherever you are, without any friction, right? And so I think that's pretty exciting.
Without any friction for sure. But I also think what institutions today are going to offer you the yields that you're offering through FluidKey
But
slash
yeah, that's the other
Morpho.
thing, right? Like you're basically cutting out middlemen that otherwise would basically be earning the yield on your behalf, and yeah, and you can basically just automatically earn yield. I think that is so much more to be done as well as, stocks get on chain, different other things come on chain, and you can then, basically, hold stocks on chain, borrow dollars against this if you have something you want to, make a purchase against, and so on. Like right now, if you have your funds in, different TradFi accounts and so on and so forth, you can't just borrow against all of your assets, right? And I think with crypto, you can do that then. Yeah.
Not to mention, think about all the antiquated things that are on institutional, accounts. One, talking about wiring, FluidKey,
Yeah.
seamless, right?
Yeah.
Instantaneous, seconds, minutes at most. If you're dealing with, wiring, if you're in Africa and I'm in Florida, uh, it's going to take a week. But also, what are the fees that are also affiliated with that transaction? It's going to be a 6-day period, but I'm also going to take 10%. And then also because of the exchange rate, I'm going to have to tack on an additional 5%. And then you're stuck with like a fraction of what was supposed to go to that individual is now just left to the middleman. For what? Things that are just so antiquated, things that are just not necessary anymore. We're living in an age where there's internet money. There's fake internet money until it's no longer fake. It's very real.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I think this is also something that has gotten so much better over the last few years in terms of just being able to on and off ramp money very easily to crypto and then just exchange on chain at the best rates, right? So with FluidKey, I can on ramp my money 1-to-1. If I receive like 1,000 euros, I can on ramp it, get 1,000 euros C on chain, exchange that for USDC at like, the best rate you'll get, better than anything you'd get off chain. And then, even like make a bank payment from that USDC at no fees as well, right? So I think the using crypto as the kind of central place to manage your funds and basically also exchange currencies, buy assets, and so on is just so much better in terms of fees, in terms of speed, and also you get self custody out of the box as well, right? Like it's always your assets. You don't have to ask anyone to do anything.
Yeah. No, and so it's a nice segue just discussing where FluidKey's at today,
Mhm.
where it should be heading, like what's the vision and goal here. And before you answer that, I would love to share, like, as a person that is a normie still, getting acclimated, finding my way, the
Yep.
ultimate goal for me is to be able to take all of the fiat that I earn from my 9 to 5. And I think this is going to be a use case that many people, maybe at least here in the States, experience. But my goal is to put that money to work. Institutions right now do not allow that. So if I have a Bank of America, a Chase account, JP Morgan, whatever the case, if I have that, it's just sitting there not working, right? And if you're talking about CPI, like the inflation rates are going up, not just here in the States, but around the world. So if I'm ever just leaving my money in an account, I'm actually losing money. The purchasing power of that dollar is going down every day, and it's not going the other way around. So for me, when I'm earning, because that's something that I'm forced to do, I have to receive that fiat in USD for my case, and it sits there. What I would like is to be able to seamlessly attach to something like FluidKey, where in real time, I don't even need to think about it because this is just the stage that we're in. But to have FluidKey attached to Bank of America, whatever the institution is that I use, and then seamlessly that USD is exchanged into USDC and immediately earning yield. Like the less clicks that it takes for that to occur, I think we're real, like you're going to be able to solve a massive, massive problem that we're seeing today.
No, 100%, and I think that's the direction we're going to. So today we already have some of those pieces. So we already have users that are, for example, receiving their salary to FluidKey directly because you can basically get an ACH virtual ACH account to your name. So that ACH account can be shared with your employer. They can pay you on that ACH account, and you receive the money in USDC 1-to-1 directly on your FluidKey account and start earning yield right away. So that's possible today on FluidKey, and we have some users who are doing that already. The things we haven't covered yet and are coming very soon is one, you obviously also want to be able to spend that money very easily, right? And so crypto isn't great yet when it comes to just like, paying for services or products in crypto. And so we have a card coming this summer, which I think should solve some of that, pain point of just being able to spend the money more easily. And then really the goal is to cover all of these flows end to end. Also, when it comes to like generating a tax report and so on and so forth, so you can really think about FluidKey as your kind of on-chain bank. And then kind of connect this to all of the points of your financial lifestyle and your life in general.
So going into, first off, I think that's very exciting, and I think that's something that a lot of people are looking for. So hopefully this gets some reach to people that are looking for this solution. But I think one of the things that gets scary is, for me, and not to put you on the spot, but you always hear on crypto Twitter, on Farcast or wherever, not my keys, not my assets, not my keys, not my wallet. Where do you solve that issue at FluidKey where you're not this like, wolf in sheep's or a sheep in wolf's clothing, or wolf in sheep's clothing, where you are portraying yourselves to be this super friendly, like self-sovereign, go here and we'll take all the things, whatever your institutions are currently doing, we're providing for you, but you don't need to worry about the middleman.
Yes. So that's a really good question. And so I think, first of all, sort of FluidKey is self-custodial. So we never have access to your spending keys, and we can't spend the money for you. Now, how can you verify that? I think there's a few things you can do, right? Like first, all of our core crypto is fully open source, so you can check that out and verify it for yourself. That also means that the day FluidKey disappears, you can still access your funds, right? Like, you're never in a situation where, okay, FluidKey is down, and so now what do I do? You can always recover your funds, and there's some, independent developers that have built these kind of recovery websites. You can find one at recovery.fluidkey.com, for example, where you can just basically connect the wallet that is connected to your FluidKey account and recover all of the accounts that are seen in FluidKey. So I think that's kind of at the very technical base layer. I think then when it comes to, for example, on and off ramping, we're trying to partner with really like the most trusted companies in the space as well. So Bridge.xyz, who recently got acquired by Stripe, are our partners when it comes to on and off ramping. All of the kind of fiat rail services we're offering, they're kind of the provider there, and they have licenses both in the US and the EU as well to provide the best service possible there. And so whenever your funds are being sent to a bank account or anything, it's not FluidKey that custodies these funds. It's basically going through Bridge.xyz and Stripe in that case. And I think it's a super important question. Generally, I think it's just about like trust isn't built in one day. So this is also something as a newer company we're working on a lot, just building that trust and making sure that it's very easy to verify that what we say is what is happening actually, and that you can access your funds at any time, and that we only work with partners and dependency that you can also really trust. And so I think these are kind of the elements that are important to us on this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for being patient with me as well. Like there's certain things and elements of Web3 that I think everyone's skeptical of, and if you're addressing it, you're transparent, and you're getting in front of it, I think that's only going to benefit you. But another thing, just touching on the security element, so what are some of the parameters that you're putting in place right now in terms of like the KYC process? I've seen a lot of people trying to accomplish similar tasks, but let's say for me, like I'm not great at practicing it. I have a VPN. I try to be as protective of my data, information, et cetera, as I can. I'm not schizophrenic, but like I try to like take precautions where I can, where it's like, actually feasible. But at the same time, I don't want to expose myself to an institution, even if it is a Web3 one. That data is still out there, and that's still potentially breached, right? So, what are some of the things you're talking about? A card. How am I going to be able to get a card from FluidKey without, the typical pieces of information that a bank would need? Is that still
so
you could, yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately today, if you want to interact with the kind of traditional financial system, in any case that is like something where you're moving like even slightly significant amounts, you will have to KYC, right? Like there's no way around it today, where if you want to do like receive, say, your salary on chain, or you want to, make bigger transfers, have a card and so on, you will have to KYC. I think there are a lot of, teams and companies also working on, for example, ZK enabled solutions that allow you to kind of prove that you are, say, a resident in the United States without having to disclose where you live and so on and so forth. I think the main hurdle there is not so much the tech, then I guess just like regulation and like what is accepted by authorities as well. I think there's still a lot of work to be done there until this becomes something that kind of practically works as well. What we're doing with FluidKey specifically around this, I think there's two layers to it. One is you can use FluidKey as a privacy preserving wallet without having to do any KYC and basically share any information with us, right? And so you can use FluidKey. It's not like you open FluidKey and the first thing we're asking is your like name and email and picture of your passport.
Which almost immediately deters me from using anything on chain. But like I understand, if I'm going to have a debit card, if I'm going to have a credit card, you are going to need to you're going to need to share that
Exactly.
information at
And
this
so that's
stage.
why there again, we're partnering with, Bridge and Stripe, and they're actually handling that process. So we're not storing any of that data on our side. And I think they have, obviously also very tight processes around these things. There's been a lot of data breaches in recent times as well, Coinbase recently and so on. So I think there is definitely always a risk of a data breach. And so I think as a user, that's something you should just, very transparently also know and decide what makes sense to share and what not, and what to use, right? I think then everybody needs to make their own decision. But I think today, if we want to be able to kind of connect your banking rails to an on-chain account, nobody will be able to provide you something that doesn't require KYC. And like the best thing we can do is just work with the best partners possible out there on this. And so I think that's kind of the very pragmatic decision we've made as well with those features.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not trying to be a stickler, and it's not deterring me from my interests. I'm simply just like, what can we do today? Well, there's not much you can do. Is it just in regards to regulation? Like, this is just the structure that we have. But I mean, is there any hope? I guess this is more of a personal question, but do you think there is a future where privacy is actually a possibility?
So I think definitely there's a future where, privacy is much stronger than it is today, right? I think at many levels. First, if as more and more things come on chain, I think you won't have to like kind of off ramp and on ramp as frequently anymore, right? Because if your company then just like pays you in USDC, you just like share your ENS or your hex address with them, and that's it, and you don't have to worry about all that. I think the second thing is then like just on-chain privacy is still like relatively nascent in the sense of what we're offering, gives you much better privacy with a new address for every transaction and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of, I think, different layers of privacy we can add on top of that. So I don't know if you've heard of privacy pools, for example, or systems like Railgun, which
Railgun's
are
awesome. I've actually
okay.
got a Railgun account.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
no,
haven't used it transparently, downloaded the software. It sits on my laptop, but I've never interacted with it yet.
so that's I think that's the hard part about like all of these privacy protocols. I think in theory you can already get really, really strong privacy levels if you like jump through many hoops, but I think it's then that trade-off also becomes really like difficult when you just want to get something done and you want to just send somebody money, and then okay, am I going to wait now 3 hours for this to be deposited on Railgun, and then what do I do? Like it just is way too complicated, right? um and so that's kind of our approach to it, right? Like we're gonna I think work also and integrate a lot of features that give you additional layers of privacy within FluidKey, but always with, I think like our benchmark is not like the best privacy protocol, but our benchmark is like just the best experience you can get on chain today. And I think that's where we need to be at least as good as that. And yeah, and that takes time. I think just now over the next few months and years, I think there will be a lot of things happening just with privacy UX where you can do all of these things more in the background, the same way you earn yield right now very automatically within FluidKey. Your money can just get deposited into a privacy pool while you don't use it, and then the moment you want to make a payment or do something else, it can also just like automatically like be withdrawn from there without you having to manually click 5 buttons before this happens. And so that's kind of where we're headed, I think.
That's exciting. I love it. So how another thing that I'd love to ask founders like yourself is just how big's your team? How many people do you have working with FluidKey right now?
Yeah, so we're still a relatively small team. We're full-time, we're a team of 3 working on FluidKey. And so that's me, my co-founder Antonio, and Federico. We're all based in Switzerland and have an office there. And then we have a few contractors that are helping us out on some projects we're now working on. And I think generally how we're thinking about this is that we can create something that's, very powerful and can help a lot of people with a relatively small team. So we're not necessarily thinking about this as, okay, we need a huge team to grow or anything like this. And so I think that's also the exciting part. I do think that as we are now seeing more and more users coming, there will be, probably a case to bring a few more team members on board. But I think with a team of, less than 10 people, we can get to a massive scale already, because of the way, crypto also is so composable. You just plug into Morpho, you plug into like all of these different protocols without having to ask anybody, without having to, understand like you have to understand how the protocol works, but you don't have to like get access to any proprietary information or anything like this. And so that is, I think, a massive unlock for us to build something really big with a small team.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we're seeing as a trend, not just in Web3, but in the entire startup landscape. I think we're recognizing that there's so many resources that are around us that we don't need 5 or 6 people to do one task that used to take one task not even 3 to 5 years ago. When you have things like Claude, ChatGPT, I'm kind of a broken record because I keep emphasizing this point with purpose, which is, for people that are listening to this and founders that are people that are just trying to be entrepreneurial, you cannot sit there and expect someone else to do something for you anymore because the resources are right in front of you. And I think it's admirable. I think it's fantastic. Multiple founders that I've had come on, the conversation has really been, what was the fundraising process like for you? And each founder that has been open to the conversation has just been like, it was horrible. It was an awful experience. I went to all of the routes that I was told to go. I talked to the Andreessens, the Dragonflies, the USVs, you name all of them. And they're like, still a little too early, still a little too early. But hey, keep getting it, get after it. Like, we'll see you soon. And, it's at that point of like, almost, I don't want to call it desperation, but like you're in a time of need, right? And you're sitting there, you have no funding, you're bootstrapping. Like, again, not speaking for this on FluidKey, but just a founder in general. You're sitting there with no money in the bank. For some cases, like some founders I've talked to, they're sleeping on their floors, sleeping in their cars, driving Uber just to make ends meet, just to keep the lights on or at least get fed. And they have this amazing technology, product, or service, and they're getting in front of them, showcasing that, and they need more proof. And it's just such a crestfallen, terrible experience and feeling to have. But I think it's also a part of the journey, right? Like, okay, that horrible experience is also giving you a gut check to see, hey, like, do I have something real here? And if I really believe in myself, I'll figure it out. And I think that's something, another shameless plug, but I think that's something that's really special that Farcaster is offering. Right. And, mini apps have been an incredible innovation for MVPs. I don't think it's caught on as much as I believe in them, but you're seeing a lot of the founders that I've had here in the past say, I built an MVP when I was told no. Farcaster gave me the opportunity to do it at a fraction of the cost. If I were to use X's API, I'm spending $40,000-$50,000 for it. I can't afford that if I'm a bootstrapped founder. So Farcaster's giving this platform. With all of that said, I know this is very long-winded, but this is me trying to get to, is FluidKey looking at potentially putting a mini app on Farcaster? Have you even thought of that yet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we've definitely thought about it. And so if you look at our payment links like jeff.fkey.id and so on, those were like, we built them in a way that was also compatible with the first version of Frames. For the second version, it doesn't really matter as much because like for the payment flow, it works pretty well like this. But I think there has been a few users. We have also a lot of users that are using Farcaster and are kind of in this ecosystem, right? And so there has been a request for us to also have a proper mini app, so you can just check your balance directly within Farcaster, receive notifications, and so on and so forth. The only thing I'd say about that is that FluidKey is for many people also something where they're starting to manage, bigger amounts of money, right? And kind of receiving, larger payments and so on and so forth. And, many apps are obviously more focused on like a seamless experience where you don't even have to log in or anything. It just like pops open and you can like start playing around with it and so on. And so the security aspect is, I think, one aspect we're still kind of figuring out. Um, because that's something that is important, I think, to many of our users. I think the ultimately the format um, this will probably take is a way for you to also just connect your FluidKey account to Farcaster to be able to, for example, receive notifications, receive payments very easily, and get access to like a bunch of things that Farcaster enables us to do out of the box. But we probably will always have to have like kind of a more of a standard app that isn't just Farcaster because of the way because of the nature of the product, I guess, right? So yeah.
Also, the thing is too, you've kind of flipped it where you don't need to, right? Like just transparently, not to talk shit about Farcaster, but it's like you're already at this stage in the game where you were fortunate enough to build around the fact that you weren't. I mean, you maybe were, not to like pry, but for the people that are building, and it's this like linear process of like, I have no money, I have an idea, that's too expensive, let's go to Farcaster, where I think you guys kind of went
No,
around.
that's for sure. And I think, we launched a little bit before Frames, for example. And so like Farcaster has been a huge part of like our growth and just generally our path. So I met my co-founder Antonio on Farcaster
No
actually. So
way.
yeah.
That's amazing.
I kind of had this very rough idea of like what, was to become FluidKey just around this like privacy element. And so I wrote about it on Farcaster, and I think this was around an ETH Global hackathon, and I was like, is anybody interested in just like hacking on this with me? And he reached out, and at that time I thought, okay, this is going to be like a fun weekend thing we are doing, and then I'll move on to the next thing, right? And working together was really exciting. I think we, complement each other really well, and it was just a really fun experience. And then next to that, what we built at that hackathon was also got a lot of people excited, and so that was a really good sign for us to kind of lean in and work on this a bit more. And then not long after, found FluidKey and kind of go
So
all
did
in.
you know each other? Did you know Antonio prior to Farcaster? Like you guys genuinely met. Did you know that you were both in, well, were you both in Switzerland at this point or no?
No, so I was still based in Nairobi in Kenya at that time.
No way.
But I had already I'd left my previous job, and I was kind of looking at kind of the next thing to do and the next opportunity. And we just met on Farcaster through, I don't know if you know Limone, who's also on Farcaster.
Yeah.
He's the founder of Orbe and the whole ETH Rome hackathon and so on. And so I think he saw my post and he shared it with Antonio, and then that's how we kind of got to.
That's so awesome. I love that. That's such a cool story. I think there's so many people that, in the quote unquote real world can't comprehend meeting your co-founder and partner that you trust with everything.
Yeah,
And like that was probably at first not doxed. Like I don't know if he was or not, but
yeah,
I just think that there's such a it's such an interesting dynamic that we have going on right now, especially for someone my age. I don't know how old you are, but like I still remember dial up. I still remember plugging my programmer or plugging the like, you know, that to see where we are today where people are truly plugged in and using this as a network. It's not, there's no longer the days of like going to a college fair and seeing a bunch of companies like with a booth and showing your resume being like, I want to work for you. Now it's evolved to this point of like, I have an idea, I'm going to meet someone on the internet that can complement the things that I lack and run from there. So are you technically, like technologically, are you one of the back end devs of this? Do you have any coding experience prior to being, with
yeah.
FluidKey?
Yeah, so I do have some experience, but I would say Antonio and Fede, the two other team members, are So they're working on most of the backend things, and they are, engineers. They have a lot of experience working on both, privacy, crypto apps prior to FluidKey as well. I'm working more on the front end side of things, and I think I have like a pretty good kind of technical understanding of everything. But you know, my background prior to working on FluidKey, I also had a lot of like more management responsibilities and kind of business development and so on and so forth. But I was CTO of the company before being CEO, so I kind of have a mix of those experiences. But I definitely think FluidKey wouldn't exist without having met Antonio and so on, just because there's a lot of things that he was also able to bring to the table in terms of the technical knowledge and the setup there.
Right. No, and I think one thing, like I'm stating the obvious when I say it, but privacy is so important just in general on chain, but even more so when you're handling assets.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, you see, I know again, I'm stating that, but to be able to find someone that has that experience previously, like working with privacy within Web3 is vital. But yeah, so with that said, what are some of the things that you're working on that may not be out yet, but you know, not to ask for alpha, but like, is there anything that you're currently working on that will be exciting?
A lot of things, but I think the two things I'm kind of most excited about, because they're going to just improve the experience by a lot, is one, we are going to release a native app, so you won't have to go to app.fluidkey.com anymore. I think on the phone it's a progressive web app, so you can download it, but it's kind of not the best experience versus a wallet that's really like in your phone, where the keys are stored on and secured with your biometrics and so on and so forth. So that's coming very soon, and I think that's just going to be a nice unlock for our existing users that are kind of also starting to add more and more funds to FluidKey. With that as well, you'll be able to get multi-factor security. So before sending larger amounts of money, you can confirm it. If you're on your laptop, it will just pop up on your phone, and you'll be able to confirm it there as well. And we can then add things like limits, for example, so like additional checks over certain amounts of money and so on. The same things you'd also get from a really good kind of neobank or anything like this, but that aren't there yet. And then there's the card. So I think the card is still a big unlock, just because, I mean, today, for example, I'm a big FluidKey user, obviously. But when it comes to card payments, I'm not using FluidKey yet. So what I usually do is I move some money, off ramp some money to my bank account, and then use my card. And so now I'll just be able to use FluidKey for everything as well. And I think there's a lot of users that are kind of in the same situation. Yeah.
So for me, prior to the card being launched, let's say day one, I'm using FluidKey. I attach the ACH from my company to FluidKey. I can do percentages though, correct? Like I think that's on my company's end, but just talking about the on ramp and off ramp to get access and into those assets, how seamless is it for me? Where like, let's say, okay, paycheck comes in, instead of putting all of my money, I put half, and that money's sitting in FluidKey. I need to spend it, right? Like immediately, like today. And I'm pulling from there. Is that a process where I need to then put it into a central exchange? Then it needs to, process. What does that look like?
No, so that's pretty seamless already. So once you receive, your salary or part of your salary on FluidKey, you can basically also send it back to another bank account in one click. The same sandbox that you'd use to send an on-chain payment can also be used to just like add a bank account and then send money to that bank account. Now, obviously, like we're kind of bound by the speed of traditional financial rails. So especially in the US with ACH, it's not the fastest. So it might take sometimes a day to settle. And I think our partners Bridge are still pretty fast and so on. But yeah, we're kind of limited by the system in a way there. In Europe with SEPA is actually pretty fast in terms of the the banking rails. So usually within 5 minutes, if I now do a transaction and send like $1,000 to my Revolut account, within 5 minutes it's going to hit my account. So it's already pretty seamless right now.
So so for you being in Europe, I think it's a little bit more of a seamless experience. For us, yeah, the ACH is a little
But
bit
that's also
slower than.
something we can improve, right? Like, so with Plaid and different other solutions, there's ways to speed that up. These are things we're also like kind of figuring out and working on. So you get to a point where you'll be able to also have almost immediate kind of connections.
I could tell you, like, using Plaid, I use Plaid all the time with different apps, and it's so quick and so easy. The KYC element, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, it's kind of something you have to endure. But other than that, I mean, it's a really so if FluidKey's looking at utilizing Plaid, that I can vouch. That's a good thing to use. But no, that's really exciting. So I definitely need to go take a look and start messing around with FluidKey a little bit more in depth, especially after having this conversation. But yeah, I think like from where I'm sitting, this is the trend that I think Web3 is heading toward, is finding opportunities like FluidKey to earn. And if that's as seamless as it's made out to be, it's just a matter of time and just getting the word out there, in my opinion.
Yep. No, for sure. And I mean, we're not the only ones working on this. I think there's a lot of great teams working on making that experience as smooth as possible. I think, yeah, it's really about like a lot of teams have worked on building infrastructure and so on. And so now we're getting to a point where it's really more about building the right end user experience that can also really rival what you'd get from Web 2 and TradFi. And not just making it as good, but making it better. And I think we're not far off getting there. And yeah, we're at this inflection point right now where I think very soon many more people will be using this.
So what do you think, two-part question here. What do you think are the hurdles that you're facing right now? And then additionally, what's your differentiator? Talking about the competition that's there, where is FluidKey just going to be, if not already, miles ahead of competition? And then simultaneously, the moats, or not the moats, but the barriers to entry for you, how are you approaching those?
Yeah, great question. So I think in terms of hurdles, I guess the most important thing for FluidKey today is just to grow, right? And to onboard more users and kind of proving that what we're building actually helps many people. And so I think there we are on a really good path because we're seeing the amount of users and the amounts of money being transacted on FluidKey grow month over month and at a pretty fast pace. But that's something that's kind of top of mind for us as well, right? Like just being able to onboard more users. And I think the tricky part there is that you're not like using FluidKey is almost like opening a bank account in a way. Like it's something you would do to receive bigger payments and manage funds and so on. And you don't do that every day, right? Like it's not the same as just like trying out a new game or something more entertainment focused. And so we need to make sure we're giving users also enough reasons to, I think, make that first step and kind of start using FluidKey. And so we've been working on a bunch of things there to make FluidKey also a little bit more fun. You now have this FluidKey score, which is kind of almost like an on-chain credit score. The more you use FluidKey, the more you get this on-chain score, which is an ERC20, but you can't transfer it, untransferable. And so others could also, for example, airdrop something based on your FluidKey score, right? Like this kind of shows that you're a valuable user without disclosing which assets you have, how much you have, what you did with your funds or anything like that, because it's on a separate self-address that isn't connected in any way. And so we're basically launching a bunch of mechanics around this as well. So next to the score, you can now, like every week, we want to highlight a token that we think is exciting and let users claim some of that token as well. So we started this last week with ETH, because I think that's like just the first token we had to go over. But I think we're going to be also sharing some tokens that some users might not know yet and might find interesting to kind of learn more about and claim. And then we're working on a package called FluidKey Plus, where the idea is if you have, a significant amount of money within FluidKey, so let's say 20K plus, you get access to a bunch of extra services that kind of also fit into your lifestyle. So this goes from a concierge service to VPN to coin tracker for your crypto taxes, eSIM when you're traveling, and so on and so forth. And so I think, for us, really the focus is on building that kind of end-to-end experience that feels like not one piece is missing that I have to now use this other app for or anything like this. And doing that with a small team, right? Like, so that's the goal. And we're, I think moving pretty fast to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just laughing right now because it's so like, you're basically giving like the Amex Black Card, and that's probably the attempt is like try to like put your VIPs and provide as much value as possible, especially with things that they're probably not even anticipating or expecting out of you, right? So that answers the question about differentiators, certainly. So again, forgive the ignorance here, but in terms of the other tokens that are offered, I'm just speaking with you in regards to USDC. Are you going to have, if not already, different liquidity pools of different tokens that I could earn yield off of as well on FluidKey? So for example, like if I see like on the website, like DGen is one of the tokens that's there. Could I start a liquidity pool? Money comes in from my check, like my bank account, and then like couple clicks, start a liquidity pool with DGen and USDC on Base. Yeah.
So right now you can earn yield already on like a lot of the kind of major tokens that are out there, right? So it's not just USDC, whether it's USDT, CBBTC, wrapped ETH, and so on and so forth. You get the same experience where you receive those funds and automatically you start earning yield on those on top of what you get already on USDC. For something like DGen, for example, I think the kind of infrastructure isn't there yet for it to really make sense, in the sense of like there isn't a lot of demand to borrow DGen, for example, right? And so if there isn't a lot of demand, like there's not a lot of you won't be able to earn anything on it, and so on. And so let's see how that evolves, right? Like I think we're also trying to just see how that space evolves and cover as many tokens as we can. But I do think that outside of just like starting to earn yield on different assets that you have within FluidKey, one thing we also want to work on is basically letting you automatically allocate funds to different assets, right? So you receive your salary payment and you say, okay, I want 10% allocated to ETH. I want 10% allocated to the backed finance Coinbase shares. So you can now buy Coinbase shares on Base, for example.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you could say, okay, I want some of those funds to be allocated automatically as well, and so on and so forth. And so I think the end goal really is that whether it's stocks, whether it's like digital assets or anything else, you can hold all of this within FluidKey on chain, and then also get the most out of those assets because you can borrow against them if you need USDC, you can earn yield on them, and so on and so forth, right? So that's definitely the end game. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So exciting, and yeah, that's probably serving a little bit higher of a purpose than being able. And no shade at anyone that's offering it, but it's one thing to be like, oh, you can earn on any of these tokens that are offered, but really, what's the yield going to be on that, and what's the return on it? But to be able to take something like Coinbase securities and allow you to earn or at least purchase those, that's amazing. So yeah, what's coming up next for you all? Are you going to be at any conferences? Are you going to be on the road anywhere? What's FluidKey going to be doing?
Yeah, so this month we're still going to be at FCC later at the end of the month. So if anybody's around, feel free to also DM Moritz on Farcaster. I'm happy to meet up with anybody who's there. I think this summer there's less happening in terms of conferences and so on, but I think towards the end of the year there's DevConnect in Argentina, which is going to be a big one. We actually have quite a few users also based in Argentina, interestingly. I think Argentina is one of these economies that has a lot of crypto users already, and a lot of our users are kind of crypto power users based in Argentina as well. So it's going to be really interesting spending time there as well. I'll try to be there for more than just Dev Connect for a few more weeks, and really also get a better sense of the market. But yeah, I think these are the two bigger conferences we'll be at. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, that's great. But yeah, I mean, we're coming up on the hour here, Moritz, and this has been super enlightening. I cannot wait to start using FluidKey. The minute that we're done recording here, I actually might want to like keep you for an extra 5 minutes to get me onboarded. But yeah, no, that this is so exciting. Love FluidKey, love what you all are building. I think this is exactly the types of things that we need. But yeah, is there anything else that you want to share? If there's a website that you want to shout out, anything like that, feel free right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, first, thanks for having me. I think this was a really, really interesting conversation. And yeah, if anyone wants to learn more about FluidKey, you can go to fluidkey.com and press on Get Started to create an account. It takes 30 seconds, and you basically have your wallet set up. And if you want to reach out, just DM me on Farcaster at Moritz.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna hit stop here and keep you for 5 more. But Moritz, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time, and let's have you on again. Let's get some updates here in the coming weeks. Maybe when you're back from Argentina.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. I just hit end.